Hi, Zizaran here with another video, and this is going to be like a before the launch because tomorrow, Last Epoch is having its multiplayer official launch. So this is a very big deal for the game. Multiplayer is a long-awaited feature that has been in testing now for a while. And yeah, tomorrow, Last Epoch gets multiplayer. So I figured I would do like a bit of a beginner video, talk a little bit about the game. I do have another video that maybe Scry will put up there, which is basically 6 cool things that Last Epoch does better. I'll probably talk about 1 or 2 of those things in this video as well. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming Last Epoch multiplayer launch. But yeah, 2023, 9th of March, 5 p.m. UK time is the launch. And all the characters that you've had before then, they're still available to play, but as far as I know, they're going to like offline mode. So you will not be able to continue those characters in online play with other people. There is not going to be a wipe. The characters that you make online now will be online forever. They are not going to get wiped from my understanding. And the next time, like for example, at the actual launch, it is going to be a new, sort of like a new ladder. So I did talk to Steve from 11 Hour Games, and he told me that we are planning a fresh start for 1.0 in the same way that PoE characters cycle into standard. But they didn't want to say that there was going to be a new league like we have in PoE for sure with 1.0 because they don't know if they're going to have time for that. But yeah, so you will keep these characters forever. They will just at some point go into standard. The cycles, when they eventually start doing that, will be like leagues in Path of Exile. Well, there'll be new content, a new ladder, and stuff like that. So what is Last Epoch? Last Epoch is an action role-playing game similar to Path of Exile, Diablo, etc., and other games that you might be very fond and familiar with already. And it has some really good things. It's a lot more accessible in the terms of like respecing in the game is really easy. It's quite a lot easier in the sense of like, it's not as complicated as PoE. In PoE, you get blasted with like this massive, insanely large skill tree, and it seems very overwhelming. Last Epoch, as you can see here, like the passive tree is a lot easier to figure out, and each skill has its own individual skill tree, and it's not that large either. And if you don't like what you've done, it has like a very good respec system where your skills will have a minimum level, and your minimum level will go up as you're leveling. So at some points throughout storyline, your minimum or skills go from level 1 to 20. At some point, your minimum level will be like 7, and later on, it'll be as high as 13. If you unspec a skill and put in a new one, it'll already start with 13 skill points in the skill. And that makes it so that you don't need a build guide in this game as much as you do need in others. You're not like a huge punishment where it's like, okay, you just gotta start over. The only time that you do need to start over, and the one thing you can't respec in this game, which is quite surprising to me, is the Ascendancy. It's like a subclass. So if you're a Primalist and you choose to go Shaman, well, you can't go Druid later on. So I do hope they fix that because it is a little counterintuitive. Like they're all about accessibility and easy respecs, except for that one thing. Probably would be better to let people at least have an option to respec that. So I think the first time I tried this game, it was like 2018, and honestly, it looked pretty trash. And they were pretty open with that. They were like, yeah, we're focusing on the game being good, that, you know, all the skills and all the mechanics, etc. Everything is fun to play. It's stuff like that. And there we're going to focus on the graphics later. So you can see in the background, this is what it looked like 5 years ago. And that was when I first played it. And, well, look at the transformation. It is now incredibly beautiful. One of the most important things to me in a game is like skills and abilities and everything really having good oomph, like good game feel. Like things just feeling good and powerful is really great. And Last Epoch does that pretty well. The CEO, Judd, said this: if there's anything wrong with our game, we want you to drag it on your stream because we want to make a good game. And that's always really been true. They've always been really open to feedback. They've always really focused on just making the game better. When they've made bad decisions, they've listened to the community and improved them, as seen by the recent like trade stuff. A lot of people didn't like the way they were going to handle trade, and they've now remade that. I do have a guest here, but we'll continue anyway. Last Epoch is buy to play, but still ends up being cheaper than most free to play games, because most free to play games ends up having Obviously a large amount of cosmetics, but also sometimes quality of life features. For example, games like Path of Exile ends up having things like stash tabs, etc. that ends up being quite costly. You end up spending a lot more money anyway. So the game is $35. Last Epoch really gives you a lot of bang for your buck. It'd be very easy to get 100 hours out of the game, possibly a lot more. I would say it's not a game like Path of Exile right now that I could get thousands of hours in, although it is for some people. It is still like pretty easy to get a few hundred hours. Right now, I would say around 500 hours in the game right now. Probably 250 of those are on Steam, and then I used to play it on standalone before it was on Steam, or before I had it on Steam. Another thing about Last Epoch, it has a campaign like other games, and it doesn't really have a way to skip that. You definitely do need to do the campaign to some degree. I don't think you always have to do all of it on your second character plus, because the endgame system, which we can talk about a little bit, the monoliths, is accessible from like a pretty okay early. I think from like 40 or 50ish you can start doing the monoliths, or even earlier really. And the only thing that you really need to make sure you get from the campaign is all like the guaranteed skill point quests. So for some of the campaign stuff, you're basically time traveling, you're going between back in the day, the ruins and things like that, and that's sort of like the shtick of the campaign. It's all about time traveling. Personally, very few ARPG campaigns really draw me in and are super interesting, and for most people they do end up being a chore after a few hundred hours played. I'd say the campaign seems to take speed racers or speedrunners 2 to 3 hours, similar to PoE, I guess. Or it probably takes me anywhere between 5 and 8 hours. I do overlevel quite a lot as well because I usually play on hardcore. So I'll show you the monolith or the endgame system, because that is one of the things people care about a lot. And you can see that I'm like walking here, and this is sort of similar for those of you that have played Path of Exile. It's a little similar to Synthesis. And so you start out here on this island, and you have level 58, Fall of the Outcasts. You would then, let's say, well, yeah, you would start out with normal, and it starts out here, and then you keep going. And each time you're doing an area, that will give you, for example, you can see here, new enemy modifiers. Enemies have 29% critical strike chance. And that lasts for 4 echoes. So it's not forever. But for the next 4 maps or echoes, 29% crit chance. And you get 17% rarity, 7% increased XP gain. This echo will give you rare shields as the rewards. And 25 timeline stability, that goes up here. And you can get a bonus timeline stability depending on what you do in this map. So for example, killing enough monsters. Once you have 300 stability, you can go through all the quest echoes by clicking them here. And these are like static missions that you have to do those missions. On the 3rd one, you fight a big boss. And that boss will have boss specific uniques as well, and can be pretty hard. And once you finish that, let's see. Once you finish that, you get the choice between a blessing. So for example, the one I've chosen is 14% increased unique drop rate. It rolls from 10 to 15. So maybe you don't even get the blessing you want at all, and you want to do the timeline over and over again. This is a global buff that is everywhere. But yeah, global buff that is everywhere, and random roll. So you could want to reroll this just to get the same one, but at a higher rate. And you also unlock either the Black Sun timeline or the Stolen Lands. So this is higher level, so you want to make sure that you have a better character, and this is lower level. Once you've gotten all the way to the end here, and you've done these 3, the Last Ruin, the Age of Winter, and Spirits of Fire, you unlock the Empowered Timelines. That makes every timeline have the potential to be level 100, which is, you know, your endgame farming. So that means every area can be farmed at level 100. And yeah, that's the endgame system. And there are a few more endgame things that are pretty cool. On top of these maps and monolith things, there's also the key system. And there's a few keys. There's 3, I believe. There is one, which is, it's sort of like a dungeon thing. One where you zone between like ghost, not ghost, to access doors, and you have to fight like a really, really dangerous boss, and there's 4 different levels. I've never done the 4th highest one, like the most endgame one on hardcore. Actually, I've just never done it because I only play hardcore. But anyway, I've just never done it. It's very hard, and to be able to like forge super legendary items, which I haven't talked about in this video, but items can have legendary potential. Yeah, there you can see it says legendary potential. To be able to use, like, combine these with items, you would need to, for the highest items, do the highest dungeon. So that's very dangerous, and there's a dungeon for that. There's another dungeon, which is basically a gambling dungeon. It is a huge gold sink where it can be like, okay, you can empower this chest for 100,000 gold in order to get like a lot better items. And then there is another key for the arena, which is basically endless waves of monsters and loot, and see how far you can make it without dying. So a lot of cool different stuff here, and they do want to add more endgame things. They have a lot of cool ideas. I've done several podcasts with the devs, and they're just very communicative and just great. So let's talk a little bit about items, and then we'll talk a little bit about legendary potential. So obviously you have blue, which is magic, and you have yellow, which is rare items. This is similar systems that other games have. In this game, you have 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes, and the stats have from tier 1 to tier 5. But that's the craftable way. On top of that, we have drop only mods that are either tier 6 or tier 7. So a lot of the end game is that you're looking through the game trying to find a good base that also has high rolls, and you're looking for example, this is tier 6 elemental resistance. Tier 7 would be up to like 40 maybe, which is huge. So that would be really, really exciting to find. And then you're hoping that the item will maybe have 1 or 2 other stats that you actually want for your build. So it's like a nice middle ground between it is actually exciting to find things on the ground, and then you're deterministically crafting them. So it becomes like a really nice combination of crafting and also RNG. So, for example, I can show a little bit of crafting here. So this is a minion damage ring with elemental resist. So we can look a little bit about the other suffixes. What if I really want health, right? And then we have something called forging potential. Every time, it'll now cost 1 to 18 forging potential. This glyph that I'm about to use is a 25% chance to not use any forging potential. And if it used 1, that would be really good too. Now it used a lot, but I did get tier 1 health, and that is guaranteed. So yeah, deterministic crafting. I mean, try again. It used 2, used 1, and now I was hoping this would happen. We got a critical success, and it upgraded my increased healing effectiveness. Now, this could also be a bad thing, because since this was tier 4, I could have done something called a Glyph of Chaos to upgrade and reroll this to something else, and boom, I got elemental damage, which is what I wanted, for example. It wasn't, but you know, you get the point. So it can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. It can never craft above tier 5, and a critical success, not only does it not cost forging potential, it doesn't cost forging potential for the extra one that you get for free. A very, very cool crafting system, and these exalted items, the drop only tier 6 and tier 7s, that's what you need for the legendary potential. So, for example, I can find a really cool exalted glove. This could be tier 6, this could be tier 7, and you combine that with the legendary potential. And if an item has 4 legendary potential, which would be exceedingly rare, it would absorb the entire tier 6 or tier 7 item. Every stat on that item. So if you had, like, you know, 1 or 2 stats tier 7 and the 2 others tier 5, all 4 of those stats get added to the now legendary item. It's no longer unique, it is now legendary. And then you basically get something not many games have, because normally when you say unique items, not very unique, are they? Everybody has this. But with the legendary potential, yeah, now there are actually unique items. You might be the only person that has this specific legendary. Gear, stuff like that, feels really impactful in this game. There's no like plus defense, plus attack. It's a bit more complicated. So it's a nice middle ground between like the super simple up arrow, green is better, and Path of Exile, where you need to basically be able to work for NASA to figure out anything on your own. And I think it does a really nice of finding the middle ground. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the legendary potential. I think it's so exciting, and it's such a great way that at the moment it makes everything except set items very cool. Set items have big issues, so I maybe fix that, but we'll see. We'll see how that pans out, chat. So another thing that's really good in this game, the loot filter is just incredibly easy. Like right now, in like less than 10 seconds, I could just, you know, add, oh, I want to search for like anything to do with summons. Like, oh, I need that, I need that, I need that, and just add it, boom, and click add, and it's in my filter. So very, very straightforward, easy loot filter that you make on the go. You can hide things on the go. So easy. Now, if you do want to try this wonderful game tomorrow, a lot of people are always worried like, well, do I need a guide? How much do I need to prepare? You don't really need to at all. It's very easy respec options. If you do really want a guide, there are people like Dreadful and Lizard, etc. that make really good video guides. And they'll definitely give you some of the like, you know, number 1% strongest builds, etc. But it is very fun to just, especially start play around with your own build, and it probably will work, especially for the most part. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you're all excited for the multiplayer launch. Thank you so much for watching. If you do want to go the extra mile and support us, and if you're interested in buying this game, you can go to my Nexus at nexus.gg/Ziz. You can buy the game there, then I get the processing fee instead of Gaben. He already has a lot of money, and I would like more. So, you know, if you like the video, that's one way to support. Thank you guys so much for watching either way. Sub if you like the video, but more importantly, try to die less than I do. Good luck tomorrow.